Hi everyone, and welcome to Deep Geek Live. This is the latest in a series of live streams where we're looking at characters in the Winds of Winter. So today we're looking at Euron. We've worked our way through a lot of what's going on in the north, across through Sansa. Then we looked at what was happening with Daenerys and then into Cersei. Now, I could have gone over to Jaime next, but I think actually a lot of what's going on with Cersei in the Winds of Winter and beyond into A Dream of Spring is going to be connected in with Euron. So I thought I'll quickly do Euron and then I'll come back and do Jaime next week. So let's pick up on this by I think I had a couple of super chats actually before I went live. Say first of all to Brianna Berman, thank you so much, saying just wanted to say I adore your channel. That's really kind. This is my first time catching a live stream and I can't wait. Lots of love from Scotland. I see there are a few people, thank you Brianna, and welcome. I see there are a few people here who in the chat who this is your first time watching a live stream. I welcome. It's a very different experience from watching it back a little bit later, so fantastic you can make it. Also had the Delphi Morphia, thank you so much, saying you're on the bringer of chaos. Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Robert. I was looking forward to this. Yeah, we're definitely going to be getting on onto what Euron's plan is and what he's trying to do. And bringer of chaos, I think, is quite a good summary for that. Ty Farnsworth as well, saying Cersei, foxes in the south. Why that versus snakes? I mean, that's a really good question. I think if I had to sort of go for one or the other, then I would say foxes are cunning, and that is probably where she's trying to go with that, rather than snakes are generally just low and evil as a sort of language usage thing. I don't think there's huge amounts in that. That's just a choice of words on his part. But why don't we start off with just doing a quick overview of where Euron is, so everybody's on the same page. As I said, I think I said this at the beginning of each of these different live streams. It's very easy to get a little bit confused about what happened on the show compared to what's been happening in the books. So, pardon me. So, where we are in the books, and I should probably say, if you're watching this, I suspect you've heard me say this before. Book Euron, show Euron are very different characters. Now, there's a if you think of the show Euron as a slightly watered down version of book Euron, that's probably really a lot watered down. That's not any slight on the actor, who I think did an excellent job with what he was given. But in terms of the character, the character was written in a lot more subdued way. Euron, the book Euron, is crazy. He's charismatic. He's got massive dreams. He literally wants to become a god. He wants to destroy the world. He is an absolutely seemingly unstoppable force of nature. And that is the character that we're going to be dealing with and talking about today. So, in terms of book Euron, where is he at? He is the king of the Iron Islands. They had the King's Moot. He was legitimately elected there. The thing which swung it was he had somebody bring out this massive horn, a hell horn, a lot of them called it. Somebody blow it, and it was clearly magical. The person who blew that horn, his lungs, he died, and his lungs were found to have turned to ash afterwards. And Euron's there saying, this is a magical Valyrian horn, and this will help bind dragons to me. So this seems to be part of his plan. He sends his brother Victarion, who is a good sailor and a good fighter, but George R. R. Martin is very clear that I think he calls him thick as a stump. He's not the cleverest or most subtle of characters. Euron sends him off with this horn over to Slaver's Bay to try and get Daenerys. He says, babe, blow this, get the dragons, get Daenerys, bring her back. So that seems to be one part of what's going on. Euron then takes the Iron Fleet, or what bits of it that he has, heads down the west coast raids loads of islands and places along the west coast, and basically sets himself up off the south coast of Westeros, and he is waiting for a big battle. The big battle is with the Red Wine Fleet and the Imperial Fleet. These are the three big fleets in the world, or in Westeros, and Euron seems to have been setting this battle up, holding back. He could have tried to take out one fleet and then another fleet, which would make more tactical sense. He seems to be setting this up for one massive sea battle. Now, we get from the pre-released chapters of the Winds of Winter, we get a few more hints about what's going on. We know the Victarion has made it over just in time for there to be a battle in Slavers Bay at Meereen. We were talking about that a little bit a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about Tyrion. And he seems to have created this fleet where he has been collecting priests and strapping priests of different religions, strapping them to the front of the boats of his own fleet in preparation for this battle. So there's his own brother Euron. There's some. He's got actually some of the warlocks from Karth. He got from them. He got this barrel of Shade of the Evening, which is this kind of hallucinogenic drug that is also magical, and it's this kind of opposite. We'll talk about this a bit more in a moment, I'm sure. Sort of opposite to the weirwood paste that Bran took. So this seems to have kind of unleashed a little bit of magic within Euron. He's got that. He's got all these priests from various different religions, and the woman who is pregnant with his own child, strapped them to the front of his ships, and they're about to go off into combat. And that is where we have left things. So that's where we're at with Euron. As always, what I'm going to try and do is focus in on questions that I've had from my patrons. I've been working through, we've got quite a few questions about who Euron is as a person, about his past and all the rest of it. Quite a few questions that we'll get onto about what's happening now in the plot with the dragons. Is there some kind of magic happening? What about Old Town? He's very close to Old Town. There are rumors of more than just rumors, we know that he seems to have sent scouts into Old Town to see what's going on there. And then there's this thing with Cersei on the show. Obviously, he got together with Cersei. Is that going to happen in the books? And what's the end game here? So that's the kind of the structure we're going to be going through. I will try and get as many questions as I can as we go through. Vivid Des Pink, thank you so much for the super chat. Just saying no question. It's very kind of you. I will try and get to as many questions from the chat as I can going through, but I will start off with some questions from my patrons. First up, Ariel Winchester saying, you touched on it a little bit in a previous video, but what are your thoughts on Euron and Valyria? Do you think he really went or found the horn and armor somewhere else like a shy? Also, do you think he has anything else of Valyrian descent to use against Daenerys or Fagon? Right, so Euron, before all of this, Euron, before he came back, claimed the throne, he was out in exile, basically, and he was doing the pirate raiding thing all the way around Essos. And he claims all sorts of fantastical things about where he's been. And one of the places that he claims to have been to is Old Valyria. Now, this is the kind of thing that people would not naturally believe. We had it already in this universe George R. R. Martin created, but then we get it again a little bit more in Fire and Blood. This very clear indication that you do not go to Old Valyria. If you go to Old Valyria, you disappear, you die. And that we get 4, 5, 6 different examples of this throughout. We get a couple of Lannisters separately have gone there. We had people flying in on dragons trying to go there. We had what appears to be Princess Arya on Balerion the Black Dread seems to have gone there. there's horrific things coming out from that. This is not a place that you go to, but Euron claims he went in there and then he came back out again, and he emerged with this horn. Now, this horn, we find out later, is called Dragonbinder, and the Valyrians did used to have horns that they used to blow that used to be able to control dragons. So, okay, he's got an ancient Valyrian artifact. Then we also see in the pre-release chapter from the Winds of Winter that he looks like he's wearing a Valyrian steel suit of armor. Now, this is astonishing because if you just think about how hard it was just for House Lannister, who went for a long, long time without a Valyrian steel sword and were trying to buy one. And they are the richest family in all of Westeros, and they could not buy a sword. A suit of armor would be way more than even that. So these are big claims. Did he go there? We don't know, is the short answer. My take is that yes, maybe he went. I suspect he probably did go as far as Ashai. Maybe he could have bought stuff from there. Wherever he got them from was not safe. It's entirely possible that he went to somewhere sort of in the outskirts of old Valyria, which is now just this sort of smoking sea. That's possible he went somewhere there that people don't generally go because sailors refuse to sail there. So it's possible that he could have found some artifacts just lying around. We don't know. I think the answer is we will never know. But the fact that we are asking the question is enough for George R. R. Martin to show us what kind of person Euron is. It's the simple fact that we go, well, he might have done, that makes us realize that this is a person who is insane. They go and do things that normal humans simply do not go and do. So that is what George R. R. Martin is trying to do. The point is not whether he actually went there. The point is the fact that people think, well, he might have done, and he's happy for that kind of reputation to grow up around him. Thank you to Randy Bobandi, good name, saying, love your live streams, first time watching live. Welcome. As I say, I think there are a few people in the chat. This is your first time watching live. It's fantastic to have you. So Euron has got some amazing artifacts, lots of magical stuff going on with him. Kyle99 says, hi, Robert, what do you suppose is under Euron's eye patch? Theon claims the eye shines black with malice. Is there a deeper meaning? Is it greasy black stone? This is fascinating. So he's got an eye patch, and we should probably just take a moment to note that there are a lot of characters. Yes, there's a lot of kind of like symbolism with like Odin and things like that, but also just within the world George R. R. Martin's got, Bloodraven's only got one eye, Beric Dondarrion's only got one eye. So there's immediately, we're looking at characters who've got sort of longevity or death and resurrection kind of imagery going on with him. Now, under the eye patch is what looks, as I say, so it's black with malice is what we're glistened or gleamed black with malice. Now, what we also hear is that this is a bloodied eye. So the kind of the impression is that this was whatever happened, it was his eye still kind of like an open sore, and then he's put something in there in the way that there might be a glass eye in somebody these days. Now, the question is, what did he put in there? Now, obviously, he could have just put in something that is black, that looks a bit mysterious, but that doesn't seem to be his style. So I think there's two options here. I think one option is the greasy black stone. Now, this is a kind of this is something beyond the scope of this live stream, but the black stone seems to be across the piece, all across Westeros and Essos, kind of a symbol of something magical that's come from the sky. Maybe it's come from a meteorite or whatever. The sea stone's chair, the throne on the Iron Islands that is made from this kind of material. We also get a lot of other allusions to it across Essos in particular. So maybe he's done that as this kind of like symbolic, old and mysterious thing. Or maybe, and this is a theory, I read it relatively recently on Reddit. And so apologies, I can't remember who came out with the theory, but thank you if it was you. What if it's dragonglass? This is just theory, we do not know, but what if it's dragonglass? Now, if this is something magical, if his eye is still bleeding, then that is the kind of thing that we know that sacrifice is necessary for magic in George R. R. Martin's world. Might this somehow be doing a magical thing in his eye? Is it possible that what we've got going on here is the equivalent of a glass candle? A glass candle is made out of dragonglass, let's not forget. And is it possible that this is allowing him to see things that he might otherwise not see? It is tinfoil in as much as we've got literally no evidence for it, but it's exactly the kind of thing we might expect Euron to have. Robinson88 in the chat saying Euron has a blood eye. He's the Bloodstone Emperor in his day. That is, yeah, that's quite a good little link across Bloodstone Emperor from, this is the Great Empire of the Dawn, one of the most mysterious ancient empires we got from the far side of Essos. So, yeah, that's entirely possible. Nicole Glover, thank you so much, saying late to the party, but thanks for all the content. Hope I can participate in real time next time under a new name. Ooh, intriguing. But thank you so much for the super chat. Lots of other, Randy Babandi again saying, can you get smooth edged dragonglass? I don't see why not. And John Potts saying dragonglass would be kind of sharp. No. I guess Euron is nutty enough to do it anyway, but that would super hurt. Yeah, so this is the point. We do not know. We're just speculating, but it makes sense for Euron to not just have something black, just because if he was trying to intimidate people, then why have the eye patch? It seems to imply that there is some purpose for whatever it is that he's got going on in there. Dominic Vaughan, thank you for the super chat, saying, does Bran ever find out about Euron's seer past from Bloodraven, and will he be involved in his defeat ultimately? Does Euron have any innate magic? Now, yeah, we'll come on to, I think I've got a couple of questions on this coming up in just a moment from my patrons. The Euron has got some sort of magic going on right now, even if it is just this shade of the evening, which is giving him visions. There is definitely some magic going on there. There's a lot of imagery with Bloodraven, for example. He's the crow's eye. His symbol is this one eye. There's a lot of things going on there. Added to which there's this very mysterious thing, as I say, we will get onto it in a bit, when he talks about when he was young, he dreamt of whether he could fly, and that sounds very like Bran's visions from when he was a child. And the question is, given the fact that Bloodraven seems to have sort of cast his net widely, many people were tried. Bran, when he was falling, could see the bodies of many others on the ground who've sort of gone through this process and failed. Was Euron one of these who was picked? It's entirely possible. So does he have an innate magic? Yes, I think he does, and I think it was triggered by the shade of the evening. Will Bran ever find out about it? Probably not from Bloodraven per se, but I think when he hooks himself up to the Weirwood network, then yes, he will be able to get that knowledge as and when he needs it. And I think he probably will in the end game. Daft Cody saying, first time watching live, huge fan. Well, welcome. Again, another first time viewer. It's fantastic to have you. Thank you for the great content, keeping the fandom alive. How do you foresee Euron's armor coming into play? Right, so we didn't see, and well, the first thing we should say as a sort of a health warning on all of these pre-release chapters is that they are subject to change. I call them pre-release chapters. George R. R. Martin is very clear that these aren't the final versions. He's obviously confident enough in them to release them out into the world, but he could change a few details here or there. So that said, we see Euron in what looks like this Valyrian steel armor. How will that come into play? Well, this seems to be what he is going into battle with. Now, this implies to me that he thinks, and we will come on to this in a big amount of detail later, but he thinks that what is going to come up as a result of this battle is going to be something he absolutely needs protection from. Not just like normal armor. We've not seen this before. He thinks this is a big battle, something that he needs almost magical protection from, and is also light. Valyrian steel is light compared to other steels. So it's actually, in many ways, it's this perfect armor for a sailor to have. Victarion's going around in all this like really heavy steel armor. If he falls over, then he's not getting back out of that water. But Euron with this, there's a chance, I suppose. So I think this is, as much as anything else, showing us that what is coming up in this battle, Euron thinks is going to be big, and he wants to survive it. He's not just on this kind of suicide mission. He actually wants to survive what's about to happen, and he thinks what's about to happen is going to be very messy. Layla A. Gushi says, hi, Robert. I've been wondering about the storm that sank the Targaryen fleet. Is there any connection to the Krakens, Greyjoys, and current or future events in the Song of Ice and Fire? Right, apologies, I just had to down my tea there. So, I think what you're referring to is way back at the end of Robert's Rebellion. We get the last Targaryens fleeing to Dragonstone. Now, this is when Daenerys was born. And when Daenerys was born, we are told there was this huge storm. And this storm destroyed the Targaryen fleet at Harbour in Dragonstone. Now, is there any connection here across to the Greyjoys? Personally, I think not. I think that just was a storm. Now, if you're thinking of what... and incidentally, the storm, the detail we get, sorry, this is a fantastic detail I only realized recently. It was so bad that it was actually, the wind was blowing the dragon gargoyles, which are all around Dragonstone, falling down onto these ships of the Targaryen fleet. So absolutely massive. So the dragons were, to some degree, you could argue, symbolically coming to life. Now, all of this aids the symbolism of Daenerys' birth, because it has to be amongst smoke, salt and smoke, and yes, you could certainly argue that the salt water is there because the storm, and so that's crashing up and around and everywhere, and the smoke, there always is steam coming up in Dragonstone. So if she is Azor Ahai reborn, if you buy into that, then that all kind of ties in with it, and also bringing stone dragons to life. That's what happened when she was born, these stone dragons, as well as obviously later when she brought the stone dragon eggs, broke forth into real dragons. So that's all part of the symbolism of what was going on there. Is it going to play into anything in the future? I mean, it's possible. So I think we will see some kind of confrontation. It's not going to be the same as on the TV show. Some kind of confrontation between Daenerys, who I am sure will set up a base on Dragonstone, and the Iron Fleet. And so, yes, I could well imagine that we do get a storm, and Euron using a storm in order to attack the fleet. That makes absolute sense to me. So there might be a degree of foreshadowing here, but the deeper, more symbolic meaning is all around the birth of Daenerys, in my view. Emily Broderick saying, thank you for the super chat, by the way, saying we've got ice wights, fire wights, and science wights. I love that science wights is taking off. But the Ironborn have their ceremonial resurrections too. So ocean wights, salt wights, could Euron obtain such power in his godly quest? Yeah, so we have a book character already who seems to in some way be somebody who died under the sea and came back. This is Patchface. Now, I would go with water wights myself for this, but the Ironborn symbolically, they imagine the ceremony, they sort of dunk the body under the water, drown them, and then bring them back up, and then it's the idea is that they died and then they were brought back. So that's what is symbolically happening. Actually, technically, what they do is some sort of CPR. So yes, that's what's happening there. Now, so symbolically, they have been doing this for a while. I think, yes, Euron will be connected up with this eventually, with this idea of the undead, that some sort of wights are happening. Because I think, and again we'll come to this, I think he will connect up with Cersei. If he's connecting up with Cersei, he is going to connect up with Qyburn, and Qyburn is not going to stop his research. He's already created one at the Zombie Mountain. He's going to be creating more. So I think that is where we're going to be going with this now. They might be slightly more watery in feel, perhaps, if they're being associated with Euron, but I think there's also a hint, perhaps, that Cersei might be one of these who is brought back in some way. The references, we talked about this a little bit last week, the references to her pale white neck, to me, just seem, yes, that could just be that she's got this milky smooth skin or whatever, but it does seem a little bit colder than that. So perhaps she is one of these people who is going to be brought back and be his corpse bride. The symbolism between him and Cersei and the Night's King and Night's Queen, I think, is quite strong, it has to be said. Ariel Winchester, thank you so much for the super chat, Ariel Winchester, just saying you're amazing. I very much appreciate that. Thank you so much. Salt Whites, says Jamie McKenna. Yep, that's possible. I think water wights. If we've got fire wights, then if we've got ice wights, I think I like water wights. Frederick Hyde, another person on first live stream. There do appear to be quite a lot here today. Lots of references to Lovecraftian magic in Euron fan theories. I'm not familiar. Could you elaborate? P.S. would love a Stannis vid. Yeah, so a Stannis in the Winds of Winter. I think I will do. So I'm doing, just by way of context, so you know what I'm doing with my videos. I'm doing these series of character studies as sort of live streams about what's going to happen in the Winds of Winter, and they're backed up by a sort of an ad hoc series that I've been doing. You can find a playlist if you look for it on my channel, which I think I call The Winds of Winter, which is issues and things that will happen. So I've covered like how will Jon be resurrected, what's actually going on with the Pink Letter, things like that. So I will be adding to that over time. One of the things I will definitely be doing is what's going on with Stannis. Whether or not I do a Stannis live stream, I don't know, let me know in the chat if you'd like that. I hadn't considered it, but maybe I should. He's definitely quite an important character. Anyway, so Lovecraftian magic, that you're not as familiar with it. So the world of H.P. Lovecraft is full of these ancient evils that are so horrific that they just send you insane. The closer you get to them, the more you understand just how deep and horrible and magnificent and otherworldly they are, the more it just drives you to the edge of insanity. So if you take a stereotypical Lovecraftian horror, I've recorded a couple of them actually for my second channel, Call of Cthulhu and The Mountains of Madness. then you get people who investigate this kind of these cultish rumors of there being something ancient and old, and the closer that they get to it, the more they understand, the closer to insanity they get. So this is the kind of the feel of it. But even more than that, there's this idea that you get like these deep ones, the old ones, the ones who were there before all of humanity, but then they somehow got buried or submerged, and they are waiting. They are waiting for the right moment to re-emerge. They have been underground, hidden, undersea, perhaps in some lost civilization, waiting for millennia, perhaps even longer. And this is the idea when we're talking about some kind of Lovecraftian magic. This is the idea that perhaps what Euron is doing is the equivalent, because George R. R. Martin has dropped in a few slightly Lovecraftian homages here, talk about the deep ones. There's some stuff over, if you head over into sort of the far side of Essos, you get a few more sort of legends of these kind of things. But the idea here is that he is doing magic which is summoning these ancient, evil, deep, magnificent but horrific things and bringing them to the surface, and that is what is going to wipe clean the world. So that is what we're talking about here. There is in terms of fan theories, I think the most popular one at the moment is that I'm aware of anyway, is the Eldritch Apocalypse one, which I think Paul Quentin's come up with. I've still not managed to track down the definitive version of this, but I've read a couple of things around it, and happy to talk about that at some point if people are interested. But yes, the idea here is that that Euron is summoning up, probably intentionally, something that is he shouldn't. He really, really shouldn't. So that's the idea. Three-Eyed Monkey saying we don't have science whites. Qyburn uses magic. Yeah, so I call these science whites because his approach is a scientific approach to understanding magic as just a part of the way the world works, that world works, and so he is using magic in a scientific way. That is why I call them science whites. He is using the same processes as others, but he is treating it as a scientific exercise. Let's have a look. So Joanne Evans, thank you for all your content. Thank you for the super chat. I always look forward to my first live chat, another first live chat. Guys, this is making me very happy, all these people here for the first time. They've been watching faithfully for months. Welcome. It's a delight to have you. Stephanie Staggers, thank you so much for the super sticker. That's very kind of you. Thank you, Stephanie. And the Fearless Mermaid is saying, smash that like button, show Robert some love. Thank you. Guys, you're being very generous and very, very kind today. Thank you. Lady Leaf Underhill saying most people call the mountains science white. Is there another name for that type? No, I don't think that. I mean, just people just tend to say other zombie mountain or something. So yeah, I go with and as Holy Drogon says, magic's just science we don't understand yet. Arthur C. Clarke. That's the idea. Is that or my concept of this is that it's not that Qyburn has discovered a different way of doing a thing. He is merely codifying the thing that previously people just said, oh, that's magic, that's beyond our understanding. Stephen Dillon saying, what do you think of the parallels between Euron and Aemond Gem-Eye? One eye, use of magic, stealing dragons, etc. I've not looked into that one, I have to say. So as is sometimes the case, I may have to pass on that one, Stephen. In terms of is this one of the so I think what I can say on this one is that what George R. R. Martin does do is he does have characters who in the sort of the background and the history and the legends of A Song of Ice and Fire who give us hints about current characters. Now I've got a question about one of these later on here, but But so for example, we get Lan the Clever, who is clearly a sort of an archetype for Tyrion, and the Aemond Gem Eye, One Eye thing, use of magic and so on. Yes, this is a sort of an archetype. George R. R. Martin wants us to see that history rhymes, because history does rhyme. And so he does have characters who are very similar one after the other. What I can't do, I'm afraid, is to sort of talk about the specifics of that and whether that there's anything we can draw from Aemond One-Eye, Gem-Eye specifically that applies into Euron and what might be happening with him. IDM 654321, thank you for the super chat, saying Stannis livestream, please. Also, will Euron get a dragon? Okay, on the Stannis livestream, yeah, all right, then I'll do a Stannis livestream. Why not? Will Euron get a dragon? I have got questions on this later, so I will go into this in more detail later, but my short answer is, I think yes, he will. I think that's what's going to happen. The simple fact is that Daenerys is not going to keep 3 dragons all the way through this and have 3 dragons for herself. She has got 1 dragon she has bonded with, the other 2 she has not bonded with, and they will need to have someone to be bonded with. It obviously on the show they went for the clear balance of symbolism of Daenerys, fire, Night King, ice, Jon, fire and ice in the middle, and so you had 3 dragon riders, and they kind of represented the spectrum. The issue we obviously have with the books is that the Night King as a character does not exist. Maybe we'll get some sort of version of him in the books. I don't know. It seems quite late to be introducing that, but we've had very little information about the others so far. If it's not him, what? Could it be Euron? He is the obvious other candidate to do it. So yes, I think he probably will, and I think I'll explain how when we get onto it. But in terms of the short answer, will he get a dragon? Yes, I think he will. Kevin Warner, thank you, saying, how do you think Euron will interact with Asher Theon in the Winds of Winter as opposed to the show? Stay safe. Thank you, and stay safe yourself. So I think that the overall, so in the books, Asher and Theon are right up north. So this whole business of them heading off to Daenerys and then coming back with Daenerys, that's not happening. The reason they did that, I think, on the show, is so that they could take the Iron Fleet over, and then Dany would have the ships to take everybody back. That, I think, was the point that they were trying to do. In the books, they don't need that. Victarion has already taken the Iron Fleet over there, so Dany will have the Iron Fleet that she can then sail back with. So that's not going to happen. So they will be staying right up in the north for quite some time, I suspect. They will come back down south at some point. They will, I hope, get a chance to interact with Euron at some degree, but it might be all the way at the very, very end of this, because I think most of the people who are currently in the north are going to be staying in the north for the foreseeable, because of the fact that winter has set in and the others are about to come. I think Theon, now he's up there, he will want to make amends with the Starks, to prove his way, to carry on his always say, I'm not going to say it, but I'm saying it again, his redemption arc. I think that is where it is. I think Asher of the 2 is the one most likely to be heading back down south, because she feels that she should be the ruler of the Iron Islands. So that I think is where we're at. Perhaps Theon will at the end, but if either of them do, I don't think they're necessarily going to stay together, but if either of them do, it will be Asher, I think. Let's one more. I think I've got one more question from Rachel Van Dane, thank you for the super chat. I didn't see a question attached to that. Although there's another one down here from you, so I assume that this is the one you meant to ask. Does the thank you so much for the super chat. So does the idea of water wights apply to Patchface? And if so, what do you think his role might be when Dany arrives at Dragonstone? So yes, I think that he is going to be, or he should be considered a water wight. I think that this is showing that this is possible, so that we then get to see, again, this is George R. R. Martin sort of setting things up, foreshadowing stuff. The fact that Melisandre considers him dangerous, I think, is because he is he's not normal. He's not there playing just for the living. He's not purely on her side. So I think that is what is going on there. In terms of what will happen when Dany arrives at Dragonstone, I don't think so. Patchface is headed up north, but I think his main area of contention is going to be with Melisandre, and then I think he's probably going to be ending up. I haven't yet worked out how this is going to be, but this idea of there are dead in the water that we had in the from Cotter Pike, who has gone up to Hardhome, and he's talking about there being dead in the water. I see the link there as being far too strong between Patchface and what we've heard here. So I think that he will be starting to be doing some more prophetic stuff, which will be having to taken in balance with what Melisandre has been talking about. I think the link across to Dany is going to be less strong, personally. Amanda Fravor, long-time subscriber and fan, very first live stream, another first timer. This is amazing. Thank you so much, guys. It's fantastic seeing so many people here for the first time. Lexi Kraus saying, what level of godhead can we actually expect Euron to attain? I'm thinking of Sauron, who was merely a servant of Morgoth and ultimately can be slain. Okay. Right, so we will never see the gods in the Song of Ice and Fire, is something that George R. R. Martin, I'm slightly mangling his words, but he has said this in one way, shape, or form or another. We are not going to see the gods. Euron is not going to be a god, so to speak, but he will I suspect, reach a point at which people may start to view him in a godlike way, in the same way that the crazy Roman emperors would be gods, and in fact many emperors, the Egyptian emperors and so on, would count themselves as gods and be worshipped as gods. That is what I see is the most likely thing, rather than him actually ascending to be this kind of higher state. That is what his vision is. That is what he is trying to achieve. That does not mean he's necessarily going to achieve it. In terms of thinking of Sauron, I have gone on the record many times as saying I think a better analog for Euron is Saruman. He's Sauron. You say yes, he's the big bad, but he's a servant of Morgoth. Morgoth, of course, isn't a god himself. We're getting into Lord of the Rings lore here, but so I think in terms of where the character goes, Saruman works better for me, and I will explain this when we get onto that bit. Saruman works better for me than Sauron. I don't think he's going to be a god, per se. I think he will think he is, but I don't think other people will. Vigstable, thank you so much, saying, do you think the Horn of Joramun, or the Horn of Winter, will act as an analogue to Dragonbinder? Perhaps it will give the user control over the White Walkers, and this is how Cersei will become the Night's Queen. Right, so the Horn of Winter. Now, the two magical horns will be important, and we're being sort of shown by George R. R. Martin to think of them as both sides of this spectrum. So the Horn of Winter has obviously got lots of sort of icy symbolism. Dragonbinder obviously got lots of sort of fiery symbolism going on there. So immediately we're looking at these two different things. Now, what we don't know with the Horn of Winter is, well, anything really. I've got lots of theories about how this will operate. I think that this is tied in with the Crypts of Winterfell. I've done lots of videos on it if you want to have a look at it. The link across to Euron is that what is almost certainly the Horn of Winter is being carried around by Sam at the moment. And Sam is in Old Town, and at some point very soon, Euron is going to turn his attention to Old Town. So will he get hold of it? I don't think so. I think Sam will manage to escape. I think Sam will head north with it. I think it will be blown in the north. I do not think that the Horn of Winter brings down the wall. Yes, that's part of a legend, but George R. R. Martin tells us we shouldn't trust these legends. What happened in the legend when it was blown, because it has been blown before in legend, what happened was not that the wall fell down. What happened was that it summoned giants from the earth. So that seems to be what the Horn of Winter does. So should we see it as an analog to Dragonbinder? Control over the White Walkers? No. But I think it will bring the Stark dead up from the crypts. So it will, and I don't think it's about control. I think it's about freeing them from where they've been bound. So that's where I see that. Is that how Cersei will become the Night's Queen? I think that Cersei will become not the Night's Queen, but as you're using the word, an analog for it. So Cersei and Euron will set themselves up in a way that reminds us of the Night's King and the Night's Queen. That certainly was the image that we had in Aaron Greyjoy's vision, when we had the throne, we had all of the dead gods over it, we had Euron, and we had this mysterious woman who I suspect is Cersei. Now, that is where that symbolism feels very like the kind of the images that we've been given of the Night's King and the Night's Queen. So I think that is what's going on there. And I don't think it's the Horn of Winter that will produce that. Steve saying, is Dany a Firewhite since she doesn't burn? Daenerys is a Targaryen, so Targaryens have inbuilt fire resistance. They can burn. Targaryens can burn, but in fact, Targaryen bodies are burnt ceremonially. That's what happens to them. But she has got heat resistance. I've got a series of videos, the secrets of old Valyria. I had a great chat with Amanda, the Disputed Lands, all about where this kind of Valyrian descent, why they might be slightly heat resistant comes from. So that, I think, is where, if you're interested, you should look for that. In terms of Firewhite, though, I think there is an argument that Melisandre might be a Firewhite, but that's a completely different video. Let's have a look. I think I've caught up on questions. Lady Pushkins, thank you so much for the super chat. Didn't see a question attached to that one. Oh, yeah, there is one saying, what if one of the horns controls the others? I don't think that the horns control the other. I like the idea because, and perhaps this was what you were getting at, Vigstable, if Dragonbinder controls the dragons, then perhaps the Horn of Winter controls the others. I don't think that that's what's going on here. I think that they do different things, but they are going to be important. And the sort of the semi-official front page, the cover of the Winds of Winter has got a horn on it, which seems to imply that the horns are going to be important. Yeah, Lady Pushkins, that's where I think is there. Ty Farnsworth saying, do you believe in Jojen Paste, link to Shade of the Evening? Yes, I do believe in Jojen Paste. At least that seems to be the most obvious solution to what that is. For those who don't know, the very short version is Jojen goes up with Bran to Bloodraven's cave, and then he disappears. We don't know where he is. He's been getting very morose. He's been clearly not thinking that he's not going to be returning. And then Bran is given this paste. It's all very dark, so you can't see what it is, but this red paste, and it's quite veiny. And we're told it's weirwood sap, but the hint is that maybe there's some sort of sacrifice in there. It's gruesome. George R. R. Martin does gruesome. Vixtable saying, never mind, you didn't miss it. Love the vids. Thank you. I don't know what was the... Oh, Vixtable, this is missed my super chat. Thank you. Sorry, I'm just being a little bit slow here, Vixtable. So thank you so much for those. And I'm sure I had one other one. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, here we go. So reflective rambling. Thank you very much for the super chat. Very generous. Euron adjacent. You're awesome all the same. Thoughts on Alysanne Mormont's role as she's reached out to Asher beyond orders, proven effective in marine combat, and both are in opposition to Euron in one way or another. Again, this is something I've not looked at, so I can't give you as full an answer. What I think I'm going to do on this one, because I want to, because I think this is a fascinating question, I'm going to note this one down, and I'm going to answer this one at the next live stream I do. It will be about Jamie, but I will answer this one either at the very beginning or at the very end, because I think this one deserves a good answer. And I don't have one off the top of my head. So reflective rambling, I hope that's okay. I want to have a look into that one. Tony3483 saying, Memory, Sorrow and Thorn is required reading for Song of Ice and Fire fans, in my opinion. Yeah, I think there's a lot. George R. R. Martin has taken inspiration from a lot of different books. Obviously, The Lord of the Rings, we've been talking about Lovecraft. Robin Hobb's Farseer series, I think, is another one. There are a lot that he's been taking inspiration from. Crouching Panther Hidden Dragon saying, in Deep Geek, your hair is rather intriguing. Yeah, I've gone another week without a haircut, so it's getting more intriguing by the week. Let's return to some questions from my patrons. Where are we at? So the Stark in Winterfell saying, hi Robert, Euron and the Faceless Men are both currently skulking around Old Town. Do you think they're going to meet up? Euron grew up on the Iron Islands, where I can't remember any weirwoods. How could the Bloodraven's failed protege theory be true if there's no weirwoods? Would Bloodraven even be able to reach him there? Okay, so there's two bits to that. Euron and the Faceless Men currently skulking around Old Town. Do I think they're going to meet up? I don't currently buy into this idea. We haven't got enough information on it yet, to be honest, but I don't currently buy into this idea that the Faceless Men and Euron are working together. I think the Faceless Men have their own agenda going on here. Will they meet up? I think that Jaqen will try and get to what he wants and escape. I think that is where that is going to be going. In terms of this idea about Bloodraven's failed protege, so we talked about it just a little bit earlier in the stream, but it's this idea, I think it has got some merits, that Euron talks about when he was younger. He had this dream about flying. That seems very much like Bran's visions. Now, that makes you immediately go, oh, so was Bloodraven going out sort of searching for people all over the place, which again seems possible. And also, Euron seems to take inspiration. There's lots of it. So the one eye thing, the crow's eye is what he's called. Again, crows very associated in with Bloodraven. Is it possible that he could be his failed apprentice, Well, I think that apprentice is too strong a word for it. What seems to have been the case is you get this Bloodraven, as far as I can tell, he seems to have like put out this blanket dream thing to children who, if they can pick it up, they have got some kind of magical thing going to them. Then he has to kind of get them into the right place in some way. It's sort of unleash their magiciness, which is the, are you going to fly? Are you willing to go with this? That seems to be there. But then that the full nature of doing the magic can only happen once they've got the actual physical trigger of the weirwood paste or shade of the evening. That seems to be what's been going on. So my best guess is that Euron, yes, he was initially contacted, he was initially magical, but for whatever reason, Bloodraven couldn't then see him, find him, get to him, something along those lines. Now, this is where this ties in with this idea about there being no weirwoods on the Iron Islands. So perhaps Bloodraven just sort of sent this thing zapping out across the world, and then Euron picked it up in his dreams, but couldn't go and do anything with it because of the fact that Bloodraven didn't actually know where he was because of the lack of weirwood trees near there. So Euron has spent almost all of his time on the high seas or out across Essos or on the Iron Islands. He's actually not spent much time at all on the mainland of Westeros. So it's entirely feasible that, yes, he sort of like past stage one of Bloodraven's quest to find potential greenseers, but then that was it. Bloodraven couldn't do anything else about it. And it was, but because he's got this innate magic about him, when he tried this Shade of the Evening, which is deliberately set up as being this kind of an opposite to the weirwoods, the weirwood paste, that did give him the visions that he needed because he has this kind of magicalness about him. So not that he needed the visions that he needed, but the visions that were prophetic visions. So that's where I think we're at with this. It's not that he was Bloodraven's apprentice that went wrong. It's just that he never actually got past that first sort of like scouting out phase, if that makes sense. Genki Feto saying crows and ravens are different. Yes, they are, but in the books, the three-eyed raven is called the three-eyed crow. So there's raven symbolism going on there. And yeah, SK saying he had a different goal to Bloodraven. Yeah, so this is they seem to be after very different things. So this idea that they're on the same side is definitely not there. But he seems to have the potential to be doing that kind of magic. Let's go to another question from Milton Christopher Appling saying, thanks for all the hard work. Am I the only person who thought the series actor looked more like the annoying older brother of Ewan McGregor? Well, I didn't think that, but Pilo Aspec, probably mispronounced that, is actually an excellent actor. If you ever catch him in Borgen, if you're fans of political drama, it's excellent. It's Danish. It's fantastic. So do go and check that one out. But on a serious note, says Milton, unless the answer is just he's crazy, what path did Euron have to Westerosi domination prior to the dragon's hatching? Or was he just skulking about waiting for something to happen? And it did. So he seems to have been skulking about effectively on the Iron Islands and doing the Iron Islander thing for a while. Then he annoyed everybody and killed people and raped people that he shouldn't have done and the like. And he got exiled. Then he went off, this short life story, then he went off around Essos. And I don't think at that stage when he went off, he had these grandiose visions of taking over Westeros or becoming a god. It was only as he went out and he got more and more, his insanity kind of grew. The way he described it is that whenever he arrived, people were calling out to their gods, and then he, because he's that kind of character, he thought, "There I am, their gods. They're calling out to me. When they call out, I arrive." So that was there. Then he seems to have gone to some pretty mind-bending places, like potentially old Valyria. We were covering that a bit ago, and then he got the Shade of the Evening. Now, the Shade of the Evening, you should just take a very small amount of it, and it gives you lots of visions and all the rest of it. He's got this whole barrel of it, and he's been glugging it down. His lips have turned dark blue. He's been having a lot of this. And that has, as well as giving him these visions, has been affecting his sanity, and it has been affecting what he wants to do. So until he got there and did that, he did not have these grand plans, is my personal perspective. Photo Rixie saying, Pilo is great, but my dream Euron is Rufus Sewell. Rufus Sewell would have been an excellent Euron. That's very true. And Holy Drogon has got one of my favourite facts here about Ewan McGregor. This is entirely random, but it's a great fact. Ewan McGregor's brother is in the RAF, and his call sign is OB2. That's a true fact. I love that. Jamie McKenna saying, "Here's to quarantine hair." Is my hair bad? I can't. I've taken my picture off of myself, so I can't see. And to enjoying a cuppa in my Deep Geek mug, which makes things taste smarter and sexier. Also, one more Stennis weight. Well, thank you very much for that. And I'm not very good on plugging my own merchandise, to the extent to which I even had a cup of tea today, and I didn't bring my Deep Geek mug with me to show people. But if you would like an Deep Geek mug, or t-shirt, mouse mat, whatever you like, there's a link down in the description. Thank you, Jamie, for prompting me to that. Lady Pushkin's asking what blood runs through Euron's family tree. We don't have their family tree going all the way back with the Greyjoys. The Iron Islanders claim this, they came up out of the sea and all the rest of it, but the hints are that they're probably First Men blood, which kind of ties in with this idea of perhaps him having a green sight, because that seems a lot more prevalent in the First Men. So that's where we are at. And I will do. Jimmy McKenna saying, "I like your hair, Robert." Thank you. That ties in with this idea that yes, he has got the potential for magic and green sight. Okay, let's go to Mads Mikkelsen. Lots of good casting ideas for Euron. He would also have been excellent. Juliet O'Connor saying, "Hi Robert, thank you for being such a calm, fun presence in these times." Well, you're very welcome. I wonder what your thoughts are on Euron in comparison to Racalio Rindoon, and whether Rindoon's storyline tells us anything about what Euron might do in the future. So this was what I was talking about when I was saying there are historical foreshadowings of him, that sort of templates for him. George R. R. Martin does this a lot. So this character was a guy who was a bit crazy, a bit piratical. He appeared in Fire and Blood Part 1. So he did stuff like when he went into battle, he rolled a dice to see which god he was going to be worshipping. He had many mistresses, killed lots of people, did crazy stuff. Declared himself king of the Stepstones, which are it's the long string of islands between the disputed lands at the bottom of Essos and Dawn, and there's a long history of people claiming to be kings of them. It's very hard to weed people out of that once they're on there, because there are thousands of these small islands and you have to fight island by island. So in terms of whether there's anything that we can draw from there, I think this is just one of these archetypes that George R. R. Martin has been throwing out for us. I don't think there's a specific thing that we need to be getting here as an idea of what his fate might be. I don't think it's going to be quite that clear cut. In fact, he doesn't often with these archetypes. He doesn't really go with what the fate of characters is going to be. So I used Lan the Clever earlier. Lan the Clever, he set up House Lannister and all the rest of it. Does that mean that Tyrion is going to steal Casterly Rock from somebody and then set up his own new dynasty? I mean, he might, but would he change the name of it to something else? Is he stealing it from another family? Well, no, he's not. It's his own family. He's just reclaiming what actually is his birthright. No, I don't. The templates are not exact. George R. R. Martin's not telling us exactly what's happening. He's just giving us hints as to what might happen. Skylar Sorensen, thank you so much, saying, "Hi, Robert. I am new to the books and almost done with the Storm of Swords." Oh, excellent. Good. You've got some good stuff to come as well. Your Traveler's Guide is fantastic and just wanted to show my support. Cheers. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Let's go with a question talking about these sort of archetypes and analogues. Jared over from Patreon says, "Good evening to you, Robert, and all the fans listening in. Knowing that George R. R. Martin likes to use historic analogues, real-world historic analogues for many of his characters, can you think of any characters from inside or out of the A Song of Ice and Fire world to compare with Euron?" Well, this was I had to have a good think about this because there are lots. So I think that you can get, and I don't think there's one. Is the short answer. It's not that he hasn't taken one character and sort of dropped it in and said, "That's Euron, I'm going to use that." I think that you can get, there are a few slightly crazy Roman emperors, like the kind of like the Caligula types, who definitely have this kind of hint of Euron, the slight insanity going on there, the willingness to kill family and so on. Definitely there. I do wonder as well, there's a guy called Harald Hardrada who was a Viking, effectively a Norseman, and the Ironborn are loosely based on the Vikings, the idea that they raided the coast of England, which is sort of an analogue for Westeros. Harald Hardrada spent a long time in exile. He was off being a mercenary in various places, came back, claimed the throne, and then he decided that he wanted the throne of England. And so he then launched an invasion of England. And the short story of that is, you know your English history, 1066, very important year. That was when William the Conqueror arrived on the south coast to try and claim the throne. He succeeded. Harald Hardrada also invaded up in the northeast of England. And Harold Godwinson, who was the sort of the Saxon king at the time, was faced with both of these threats, landing at almost the same time. He goes up, he fights Harald Hardrada, defeats him, then rushes down to face William, who became William the Conqueror, and loses to him. So there's a possible sort of link across to Harald Hardrada there, but in terms of the feel of a character, then I think some of the really decadent Roman emperors who claimed godhead, I think those probably work better. Sam Klontz the second, thank you so much, saying, "With Cersei and Euron linking up, what do you think of the theory that he's the Valonqar? Always enjoy your work." Thank you. Thank you for the super chat. So I have done a video on this a long time ago. If you want to search for it, I had Grey Area on the channel, and I did a sort of a short series of, I think I called something like My Favorite Theory, that I invited various people on to say, try and pitch their favorite theory to me. And she put this idea to me that Euron was the Valonqar, and I was nearly convinced that it does have some things going for it, as you say, the fact that he clearly is very happy to be killing his lovers, and he, you could say, is the younger brother, so the Valonqar theory could definitely work for him as well. Personally, I still think that in terms of Valonqar, who is going to eventually kill Cersei, I think the idea that this is Jaime works just too well for me. We did a lot of really interesting stuff last week, all about the idea of maybe their bond is being broken. His hand has gone. They were born. His hand was holding onto her foot. His hand has gone. Her foot looks like it might get infected. Might that be got rid of? Would that symbolically be breaking their bond? But I think that they've so much of this kind of language they both used about we came into this world together, we will leave it together, implies that they will go at the same time. And he is her little brother. And as much as she's been thinking that this was Tyrion, it seems like an easy misdirect that this is actually going to be Jaime, and it seems like a natural end for where his character goes with all of this. So I think Euron will be around, and I think that Euron could do it. It's within his capabilities, but I think that there are other characters, or particularly one other character, who it works better with their story. So that's my general position. Magic Shard saying, "Hey Robert, would be cool if you made some merch with some other references from the channel. Maybe if in doubt, blame Bloodraven shirt." I have thought about this. So, well, if you insist, I talk about merch. I've had these kind of thoughts for a while. I will. If in doubt, blame Bloodraven is something I know a lot of people enjoy as a phrase. Other things like Kraken Tackers, one of my moderators, gives me a chance to thank my moderators. Moderators, thank you. You do a fantastic job. So a few of these kind of like phrases I have definitely thought about putting on shirts and something, and I will at some point. It's just a matter of time, I'm afraid. It's my priority has tended to be making more videos rather than making more merch. So hopefully you appreciate that. But yes, when I get time, I will definitely do that. Thank you. That's a really good idea. Hi, Manti Mukherjee. Thank you so much for the super chat. I didn't see a question attached to that one. Having a quick flick through just to see whether or not there is one. I can't see one. Hi, Manti, but thank you very much for the super chat. Anyway. Let's do another question. So actually, Maura Lee, thank you so much that you did a super sticker before we went live, and also a very generous donation. Maura, thank you. You know how much I appreciate you. You had a question over on Patreon saying, in the books, Euron said that he threw the dragon egg into the sea during one of his foul moods. If Euron truly had a dragon egg, what do you think he did with it? Did he pay a faceless man to kill his brother? Okay, so this is one of these things that Euron says that we don't know the extent to which to take him seriously. So he claims he's also, as well as having this dragonbinder horn, as well as having this Valyrian steel armor, he claims he once had a dragon egg and then just threw it over the side of the ship. Maybe that's the kind of thing that he could do because he's a little bit crazy. But I don't think so. It makes a lot of sense that he did use it to pay the faceless men to kill his brother Balon. Now, we know that Balon Greyjoy died. We know that the timing of Euron coming back is very coincidental with that. And we know from the Ghost of High Heart, she has this prophecy which basically says a faceless man killed Balon Greyjoy. Now, you added together all of these things, plus the fact that the faceless men charged for killing a king would be astronomical. A dragon egg probably would be a reasonable payment. They clearly are interested in dragons because Jack and it is in Old Town, seems to be hunting for the book about dragons. So yes, that all adds up. So it seems likely is the short answer. He could have thrown it overboard. I don't think he's still got it. I think that his plan is to get a dragon, a live dragon, rather than hatch one and just sit there and wait for a few years. Sitting there and waiting for a few years isn't really his style. So I think that probably he would be thinking to himself, you know what, I've got a horn which I can control a dragon. I know there's dragons over there, or I can try and hatch this thing. It makes a lot more sense that he just go, you know what, I'm just going to try for this blow the magic horn, control the dragon thing. That works a lot more for him. Okay, so I hope that one makes sense. It just all ties in. He could have thrown it out, but it just all ties in for him using that to be paying the Faceless Men to do it. Second sister, what if Bloodraven meant to reach Euron in the flying dreams he had when he was young? I think I've answered this one already, actually. Second sister, apologies. I probably should have put your question a little bit higher here. Can't really get a grasp on the relation between Euron and the Old Gods or Weirwood Network. I think that they were trying to reach him, sort of got a little blip on the radar, but couldn't because there were no Weirwood trees on the Iron Islands, couldn't actually connect with him, and then he got some sort of lost from there. That's where I think it is, and he has gone symbolically along the same sort of magic, but the opposite of it. It's like going to the dark side of it. Weirwood Network is pretty dark itself, it has to be said, but the shade of the evening trees are deliberately blue and black, opposite sort of the red and white. So they're attempting to be these kind of polar opposites. And the shade of the evening drink seems to be the opposite to the Judgment Paste, Weirwood Paste. Jedi Spartan 942, thank you, saying, is Euron's Valyrian steel armor full plate or just breastplate? It's a full set of armor is what we're told. We're not given a whole description of it, but that's what it is. And we don't have confirmation, we should say. We don't have confirmation it's Valyrian steel, but that's what Aaron, looking from afar, seems to be thinking. Let's go to another question. One more question, I think, from my patrons for a moment, then saying, so Lord Morley saying, in the books, as part of the Green Seer training, Bran has to eat weirwood paste and Euron drinks Shade of the Evening that colours his lips a blue tinge. What is it about these substances, their magical properties, that both Bran and Euron hope will help them in their ability to attain their goals? So I don't think Bran is there. Bran is, we have to remember, a child still. At the start of all this, he was just 6, and horrific stuff's happened to him. He's been dragged away from his home all the way north. He thought he was going there to learn how to fly, to get his legs working again. This doesn't seem to be what's happening. Instead, he's being trained to be a tree wizard. He is not there with some grand plan. He has been manipulated through this, basically. So this is not about him trying to get what he wants. This is about the Weirwood Network using him to get what they want. Now, the interesting point that I don't think we as a Song of Ice and Fire community have explored is that if we've got the Shade of the Evening as being this opposite, does the Shade of the Evening tree also have an agenda in the way that we always talk about the Weirwood Network as having an agenda? Is this a single organism? Is that what is going on here? Or is it simply a sort of a different version of the same thing, but without the sentient trees, so to speak? So we don't know that bit, but this is basically, Euron is drinking this because it is giving him visions of the future, and he is now trying to make those visions real. He is basically, the implication is, he is following what the visions are that he sees. In the same way that Dany sees lots of visions in the House of the Undying, she kind of puzzles over them Euron lugs this stuff down, sees all of these things and says, right, I'm going off and doing this now, I'm going off and doing that now. And he's actively trying to make stuff happen that he has seen. Okay, so let's, as always, part way through these, what I try and do is just let you know what's coming up on the channel. I am focusing now very much for the foreseeable future on two things: Song of Ice and Fire content and Lord of the Rings content. So I'm producing a series of videos on Lord of the Rings, both character studies and answering some of the big questions that people have about the world of the Lord of the Rings. A Song of Ice and Fire content, I recently launched my Secrets of series of videos where I've been talking to other content creators about mysterious places or groups and things like that. People seem to like that, so I'm doing some more. I'm going to be recording a few more this week, so expect them over the next few weeks. I asked my patrons what my a $10 level, and in my Patreon, then you get a chance to influence what future videos I make. And so I asked them, what shall I do my videos on in this series? A whole series of possibilities coming through, and I'm going to make as many of them as I possibly can. So if you're one of my $10 patrons, thank you so much. I've taken on board your comments. I'll try and reply on Patreon in a moment, but I've taken on board what you said. I'm going to try and do those exact videos. So as we're talking about Patreon, thank you, patrons. This is how I manage to do what I can do. Is your support is what allows me to do this. So thank you. I hugely appreciate it. If you're interested in supporting the channel, if you want to get access to stuff I do just for my patrons, there is a link down in the description to my Patreon page. Basically, I've got various levels and you get different things. $2 level, then that's the sort of the basic level. As a thank you, you get priority questions for live streams like this. So the questions I've been going through have been coming from my patrons. $5 level, you get access to all of the audio that I produce for this channel. $10, as I said, you get both a thank you and down in the description and a chance to influence future content, voting on them, suggesting ideas, stuff like that. $30 level, then slightly more bespoke rewards. So we can chat about stuff personally and try and agree something. So those are the different levels. If you are interested in supporting the channel, getting access to that, there's a link down in the description. Okay, let's carry on talking about Euron. Oh, hi, Manti Mukherjee. I can see a question from you now, saying, who does Robert think will kill Euron? Okay, so this, I will get to this at the end of this stream, but the short answer is well, I'll give the slightly longer answer now. Why not? We have to ask where Euron is going to be. I think Euron is going to end up in King's Landing, as he did on the show, but for slightly different reasons. I think he's going to end up in King's Landing with Cersei, and then I think that the people who survived all of the other stuff in this story, they come down into King's Landing, and Euron will have to be dealt with. The person I think it is most likely will kill Euron, is Jaime. I don't think it'll be a short sword fight, just people squabbling over Cersei's love. That doesn't seem to me the way it is. But I could certainly see Jaime up against Euron in some way and seeing what he has done to the woman that he loves. Yes, I think that he does. The Brienne thing will happen in the books. I'm absolutely sure of that. But Jaime, I think, will come back, and whatever happens, he has got a bond with Cersei. And if he sees that something horrific has happened to Cersei, she is not the person that he fell in love with all that time ago, then I can certainly see that as a good reason for him to be killing Euron at the end of all of this and to get to Cersei. So I think that's slightly more layered sort of ending and reason why, rather than just Euron fancied a fight, which basically seemed to be what was going on the show. Let's let's go to Ed Pistemic saying you think the Brienne Jamie fling will happen in the books. Yeah, I'll get onto Jamie next week, so we'll talk about this properly then. But the short answer is, I mean, I don't think it's a fling. I think it's a long way from being a fling. But I think that for want of a better word, yes, I think it will be consummated in a book or two's time. I think that that's where we are heading for this. Let's get to some questions about Euron and Dragonbinder and what's his big plans for the sort of the short term about all of this big battles and all the rest of it. A lot of fantastic questions going on here. So Katie Smith saying, my question is about Dragonbinder. I know it technically doesn't matter who blows the horn and the dragon will be bound to the horn's master. We assume that this is Euron since he found the horn and technically has ownership of it. However, with the horn en route to Dany, is it possible that she will use the horn instead? Victarion wants to take her as his bride to spite Euron. Could he give it to her, give her the horn as a gift? Also, what qualifies someone as the horn's master? Similarly, Dan Hibbert asking, do you think that Euron has already bound himself to Dragonbinder, most likely with blood magic? Also, when Victarion blows it to summon a dragon, will Victarion die as a result and the dragon fly over to Euron? Okay, so what, and actually I'll ask another sort of vague question. I'll talk for a little while around this sort of, because I think there's a lot of interrelated stuff going on here. Caroline Schween, good question coming, saying, I pity poor Victarion. I can't help but think that Euron would have anticipated his thoughts of revenge and is possibly spying on him via the Dusky Woman. But what is Mokoro's angle? Is he using Victarion as well, and to what end? Will Euron get a dragon? What's going on with Dragonbinder? So Euron has sent this horn with Victarion over to Slaver's Bay, to Marine, the idea to get Dany, to get dragons, bring them back. That's what he's been said. Now, clearly, Victarion is not the cleverest of people, doesn't really realize what's going on there. But on his way, he doesn't particularly like Euron. On his way, he decides, you know what, I'm gonna switch this up. I'm gonna control the dragons myself, and I'm going to get Daenerys for myself and forget Euron. So that's what Victarion thinks he's doing. Now, the Mokoro is this red priest who has who sort of washes up quite literally onto the boat that Victarion is on, and he had been sent from Volantis over to Marine. So he's on this mission that he's not really been open about all of his motivations, but he's on this mission to find Daenerys and say, hey, we think you are Azor Ahai reborn. We think that you are the person who's going to be leading the fight against the Great Other. Where the Red Priests are behind you. So that's what he is there for. That doesn't necessarily tie in with what Victarion's after or what Euron's after, because Mokoro, when he sees this horn, that is, he's the person who actually translates what it says on the side, saying this is Dragonbinder and all the rest of it. He is not going to want Daenerys' dragons to be going off with Victarion. That's not what he's about. He should be actually trying to build up Daenerys. So although he's never met Daenerys yet, he's already on Team Daenerys. Then we get another angle on this one, is that we get this Dusky Woman. Now, the Dusky Woman is, she's a gift that Euron gave her to accompany him on the way there. And Victarion says, oh, great, I've got a woman now. Victarion, as we've said, is not the cleverest. She is mute. She can't speak. This is very much a Euron thing. And the the implication is that she is a spy for Euron. She may even be, if he has got these kind of green seer powers that we were talking about earlier, she may even be someone that he wargs into. So he may even actually be walking around as her sometimes, just keeping an eye on what's going on. Now, Victarion is clearly, he's realized that, or is told that people who blow it die. So he's decided he's not going to blow it. He's going to get 3. So he recruits 3 sailors. Said, you want to blow this magical horn? Yeah, it might kill you, but if you survive, you get lots of money. So he's got these 3 sailors lined up to blow this magical horn. The clear hint is that the whatever magic that this has, and we've not seen, we saw it blown on the Iron Islands, but a long way from any dragons. But the implication is when it's within earshot of the dragons and it is blown, that somehow binds to the horn's owner. And the implication is that Euron has done some kind of clever thing already, bound it to him, so that even if Victarion gets one of these sailors to blow it, it's not going to bind itself to Victarion, it's going to bind itself to Euron. So that's the situation we've got going on there. Now, in terms of whether or not Victarion might give the horn to her as a gift, I don't think so. I think that he is very much in the mindset of controlling the dragons and taking her. That seems to be what he's about. Whether Victarion himself will blow the horn, I don't think intentionally, because he's lined up these other people to do it. Whether he ends up doing it himself because he's forced to is a different matter. I think the way broadly this is going to pan out is that when the dragons appear, then the sailors will blow this. We are not going to see exactly what happens. We don't know the magic which is exactly going to happen. But I think Moqorro will try and stop it, because why on earth would he want this magic which sort of takes a dragon back to Euron? Now, what happens then? It's not 100% clear. My best guess is that one of them gets caught by it, gets taken back, flies off over to Euron in some way. Now, this, it has to be said, is control. This is not a dragon bond. So whether that's going to work or not, we don't know. Maybe this is just taking the dragon away from Daenerys. It's just going to burn a few things and then go back. We don't know. The twist on all of this is that Euron is not just leaving this to happen and just whatever happens over there, happens over there. We know that he's got a spy. We're pretty sure he's got a spy in there already. And he is timing, it appears, the battle, the sea battle that he is about to have with these 2 massive fleets, the Red Wine Fleet and the Imperial Fleet. He is timing that battle to happen at the same time as Victarion's battle and the blowing of the horn there. Why? Well, first of all, why do we think he's delaying it? Because he seems to have some kind of control over the winds and the speeds and all the rest of it, and we get various reports that while Euron is lying in wait there, he could go off and attack one fleet, but he seems to be waiting for another fleet to come round, the Imperial fleet, but we hear reports that they've been delayed because of adverse weather conditions and all the rest of it. So he seems to be setting up these 2 massive battles to happen at the same time. There is a massive battle happening over in Slaver's Bay. There will be this huge sea battle, which is happening in sort of off the south coast of Westeros. Now, the really interesting thing happening here is that he's bedecked himself in all of this Valyrian steel, but also he has strapped to the front of the ships in his fleet all of these different magic-y people and priests from all these different religions. He's been gathering them, he's been selecting them, he's been strapping them to the front of all of these boats. And he has also strapped to the front of his boat the woman who is currently bearing his child. Why? Well, he's clearly about to make a sacrifice. He is going to perform some magic. The dragon binding thing is clearly quite big magic. He has strapped all of these priests and all the rest of it, but the sacrifice which is going to be there, as well as all of the priests dying, I'm sure, as well as the big battle which is going to be happening over in Meereen, as well as lots of ships being destroyed, there's going to be his unborn child probably is also going to be killed. And that unborn child, given that Euron is king of the Iron Islands, that as a child with king's blood. So king's blood is a hugely important and powerful bit of magic, sacrifice of king's blood. So something big is happening, a huge sacrifice is happening. What on earth could he be trying to do? My best theory, and this is that there's a hint of this, I think, in the Eldritch Apocalypse theory that I was talking about earlier. Personally, I think it's not that Euron himself is doing magic. I think that he is expecting all of these priests and magic users that he strapped to the front of the boat. They are going to start calling out to their gods. They are going to start trying to cast whatever magic that they can. They are going to be doing absolutely everything. We've already heard Aaron Greyjoy has been repeatedly calling out for his god to be showing up. We are going to get huge amounts of magic flying about all over the place, backed up by huge amounts of sacrifice, backed up by potentially dragons. We've had all these reports of krakens. Surely krakens will appear at some point. There are dozens of mentions of them around and about the books, and yet they haven't yet had a role. So surely they will happen at some point. There is lots of magic going on here. If this does make its way over to Old Town, the High Towers are there. They have been doing magic. There's more magic going to be thrown around. What about what's happening in the Citadel? Are the Maesters just going to give up and go away, let all of their stuff be burned down or whatever? No, of course they're not. They're going to be using every tool that they possibly have to be trying to prevent this. There is magic going to be going on all over the place. This is not, in my view, Euron doing some very focused spell. This is Euron creating chaos. This is Euron getting all these priests to be trying to do whatever spells they can, summoning whatever things their gods can do. This is him trying to summon a dragon. This is him sacrificing his own child as king's blood. This is everything going on. And so what we're going to have off of the coast is just crazy stuff. Because what Euron is wanting to do is destroy the world. He wants to destroy it. He wants to kill all of these gods. He wants to be the god over whatever rubble is left after he's just created huge amounts of chaos. So that is what is happening. This is not a directed specific spell that's happening. This is Euron trying to create chaos. He is absolutely insane. And so that is what is going to, I think, what is going to be happening. Stephen Dillon saying, do you think that he's trying to get the Red Wine, Imperial and Ironborn fleets to fight at the same time to get a lot of blood in the water for a blood sacrifice? Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think he's trying to create as big a sea battle as he possibly can. Crouching Panther, Hidden Dragon Tang, the pregnant woman that he has strapped to the front of his ship. Yeah, absolutely. He's trying to get so much blood going into the waters. That will bring Krakens, I'm sure. He's going to, if he can try and get a dragon arriving at some point, that'll be great. If he can get the whatever magic that these other people are trying to do, this is going to be crazy, and it's going to be amazing to read. Yeah, do not think Ygritte Weirwood, King of the Ashes. That is exactly what he's trying to do. So do not think that this is some incredibly detailed, thought-out plan from Euron. He's just trying to destroy stuff. He's just trying to create chaos. So that is what is going on here. Against that, we have got lots of other people. So he's not necessarily going to get all his own way. Moqorro, as I say, is going to try and stop what's happening with Dragonbinder the Horn. We've got the High Towers, who are very big and powerful and important, but have been incredibly quiet so far in this story. And we've got the Maesters as well. There's a lot of important people and very capable people around. But if Euron just wants to create chaos, which I think he does, then definitely he will achieve that. Julia Erickson saying, "Hi, Robert, finally became a patron. Welcome. Fantastic to have you part of the community. Want to start off by saying thank you. Your analysis of Game of Thrones is actually the reason I started reading the books. That makes me really happy. Thank you. I'm so pleased when people are inspired to read the books, because there are so many extra layers of meaning and subtlety and nuance that are in the books that weren't on the show. As great as the show was for the first few years, there are extra levels going on in the books. I have a question," says Julia, "regarding Dragonbinder. I've been a bit confused as to why Euron let Victarion take Dragonbinder to Dany. After all, Victarion really hates Euron. I came across a theory that made a lot of sense. The theory goes that Dragonbinder does not bind the dragon to the one that blows it. Instead, it binds the person who blows it to the dragon, their soul or blood being trapped in the dragon. That could potentially help Euron control the dragon, as he shares Victarion's blood and therefore has a connection to the dragon. Maybe this is what the Valyrians did, sacrificing family members to bond with dragons." Okay, I think that's a fantastic idea. My general take, as I say, is that he's already bound it to him. So his thinking is that it doesn't matter who blows this horn. This horn is already bound to me. So a dragon is going to be released. He's probably then also thinking, you know what, if Victarion somehow does manage to get away with this and break this bond, then a dragon again is going to be released. Extra chaos. He probably thinks he'll always be able to work around Victarion. I don't think he sees them as a threat in the slightest. He thinks he can manipulate him. The Dusky Woman is there. There's some really strange phrasing when basically Moqorro says, you know, you need to bind this to you, you need some blood, and then there's some really strange phrasing that about whether the Dusky Woman might have provided that blood rather than Victarion. You could read it either way. If so, she is connected directly into Euron, so actually what he's done is just doubled down on the binding to Euron. So I think that Euron has got this covered. Lady Pushkins, will Euron kill a dragon with a crossbow like on the show? I don't think so, no. That's the... Okay, so the point of what was, I think, the point of what was going on there was you had 3 dragons. Dany had 3 dragons, and 3 dragons come across with her. One of them gets taken over by the Night King. That is not going to happen in that way, if at all, anything like that in the books, because the Night King has invented character for the show and that entire episode. Thankfully, for those of us who didn't particularly like that episode, that was an invented episode. The showrunners happily admitted it. That wasn't something George R. R. Martin told them happened. They invented that whole scenario. So that bit doesn't happen. But Dany is not going to arrive with 3 dragons and just take over Westeros. That's not the way this is going to work. One of them, I am sure John will, the link across with Rhaegar is just too strong symbolically. I'm sure he will end up writing that. Another one of them, I think, will go to, as I say, I think Euron may well end up getting control of it. The 2 dragons will fight. Again, this is the kind of foreshadowing thing. We've had it many times. Dragons fighting. We've got the Dance of the Dragons. I think that it makes sense. Foreshadowing in Fire and Blood, perhaps that there is going to be dragons fighting over the Isle of Faces, over the God's Eye Lake. That seems to make sense to me. Euron is not there facing Dany with dragons. That's not the way this is working. Euron, I think, will have a dragon, and then there's going to be a battle between 2 of them. That seems to make a lot more sense to me than him there trying to protect against dragons attacking. They were trying to get out of a corner that they'd written themselves into because of, and all of this actually stems, sorry, I'm off on a little rant, all of this stems from the exclusion of Fagon, because the moment you take him out and his invasion, suddenly Dany's invasion has to be bigger, because all of the forces who are working to support Fagon in the books, which people like Varys, for example, so Dawn is almost certainly going to get behind Fagon. All of these kinds of people on the show, they had to bring them behind Daenerys because they had to come across it somehow. In the books, that's not going to be the case. Most of the support, that the Westerosi-based support, is not going to be there for Dany when she arrives, because that's going to be behind Fagon. So we've got a completely different scenario there, that suddenly and on the show, they had to spend the entire season cutting Dany's army down to size, getting chunks off of it after another, because it was too OP when it arrived, because they had to get all of these people across, and that was the only way that they'd figured out to get everybody across once they cut out one of these invasions. So, rant over. This everything, the butterfly effect, the showrunners and George R. R. Martin have talked about many times, the butterfly effect of cutting out one character has meant that there were huge differences later on that they had to try and stitch together. And the way that they chose to do that was, okay, well, we can't have this fight that we thought we were going to have between 2 dragons. Therefore, how are we going to get rid of one dragon, because we only need Drogon at the very end? Well, let's have Euron shoot it down. That's how they got to it. I don't think that they did it very well, but that's, I think, how they got to it. Okay, sorry, a little bit of a rant going on there. I think I had a super chat somewhere in that. Yeah, to Delphi Morphia saying, thank you. No way is he wanting to raise the dead who fell in the 2 battles and make them be his army of corpses. This is entirely possible. I don't think that... So when we're talking about water wights, he's going to create a huge amount of corpses in the water. So is he in that place yet of being able to raise the dead? I don't think so at this stage, but I wouldn't put it past him. So I think at this stage, he's just about creating the chaos. I think him being able to bring people back from the dead will happen when he teams up with Cersei and therefore with Qyburn. So I think that is what is happening there. I think all of this sacrifice now is just to create the chaos. So that, I think, is what is going on. Quick flick through chat. I think I'm up to date now. Lots of Kraken emojis going on in the chat, which is always a good thing. Okay, so let's get another question. So Dominic Vaughan over on Patreon says, where to begin with this guy, Euron? Cthulhu, apotheosis, high-functioning sociopath. You've described Euron as a Saruman-esque secondary villain. Is he purposefully attacking Old Town for access to arcane magic at the High Tower / Dragon Lore? So in terms of the second bit, I think that yes, there's entirely a chance that he is trying to get hold of old ancient knowledge that will allow him to create even more destruction, and so that makes a lot of sense to me that is part of what he is doing. But as I say, it's just about the chaos, really. He's just about trying to destroy stuff. He is absolutely insane. The first bit about him being a Saruman-esque secondary villain. I should probably explain where I'm coming with this. So I know some people have suggested that perhaps Euron is the main big baddie. That all of this ice and fire stuff is that's going to kind of fade to the background. By the end of it, Euron is going to be the big baddie. Now, I agree on one point that Euron will survive to the end. I do not agree that that makes him the big baddie. So this is the Song of Ice and Fire. It's not the Song of Ice and Krakens. This is not about him, but he is going to be the character there at the very end. And when I say a Saruman figure, what I mean is obviously at the very, very end of The Lord of the Rings, in the books, not the films, the movies, but you get the scouring of the Shire. Saruman survives to the very end, and he has to be rooted out of home, so to speak. And George R. R. Martin has said, this is scouring of the Shire. If you want to know the feel of how A Song of Ice and Fire is going to end, look at the scouring of the Shire. So that is the kind of the feel we've got. This kind of we have to look for a Saruman figure. The most obvious Saruman figure, I think, is Euron. So I think he will survive to the end, but he is not the big bad. I think the other reason why I come to this conclusion that he's not the big bad, he's not the point of this story, is we often put a lot of weight, I think rightly, on the fact that George R. R. Martin started out thinking he was writing a trilogy. So book one is effectively act one of a 3-part play. That's the way that he structured it. It was only when he started getting into book 2 that he realized, actually, no, this is getting a little bit bigger, started expanding the world a little bit. Then the world sort of kept on expanding out through from books 3 onwards. Now, book 1, no mention of Euron. He doesn't appear, he's not there. We get a little bit about the Greyjoys, but not huge amounts. We obviously have Theon. Theon doesn't go back to the Iron Islands until book 2. Book 2, we still just have a few references to him. He doesn't appear off the top. I can't even remember off the top of my head whether he comes back in book 3 or 4. I'm sure someone in the chat will be able to put me right on that one. But it is a very long way into the story before Euron actually appears. And in the first book, which is where George R. R. Martin is setting the scene for this, what originally supposed to be a trilogy, that he's not there at all. And if he's not there at the beginning, that implies to me that he is not actually the central person about where this whole story arc is going. He's one of these things that's been added in as we go along to create a bigger world and a bigger story and a better story, but he is not there as one of the fundamental points of it. Book 1 has got a whole load of things introduced, like the Isle of Faces, the Pact, the Green Men, things like that, that George R. R. Martin has sort of admitted that if he'd known he was writing such a long series, he wouldn't have included so many big hints right at the very beginning like he did, that they are going to be important. So the fact Euron's not there at the beginning, I think, is very telling. Cat May saying, do you think Euron has a way of summoning a Kraken, and do you think he will use it against Old Town? Okay, so this is a great question because Krakens do appear to be in this world. And they appear to be, from what we've heard, again, there was Fire and Blood. George R. Martin has used Fire and Blood in a lot of different ways, I think, to be teeing up concepts that will be happening in these later books. One of them is, what brings a Kraken? How do you summon one? And the answer seems to be lots of blood in the water. Think of them as like sharks. They can sniff it out. They come there. So what is Euron doing? He is creating a massive sea battle, a battle between the three biggest navies that there are in Westeros. There's going to be a lot of blood in the water. If Krakens are going to appear anywhere, they're going to appear there. Is he doing that deliberately? Yes, I think he probably is. Added to which we get the fact that we've got Euron Greyjoy, who is he's effectively the high priest of the Iron Islanders. He is repeatedly calling out to his god to be saving him from Euron, who is basically apostate heretic, everything against what the old way of the Iron Island is about. So Euron is, when he's strapped to this front of this ship, about to be sacrificed, what's he going to be doing? He's going to be crying out to his god to be saving him, to be doing something. If there is, and if there's anything that the god would do, it's bringing forth Krakens. So is Euron going to personally cast a way of, summon them, cast a spell? I don't think so. I don't think he needs to. I think he's just creating all the conditions where that will happen. I think Euron's going to be summoning them. I think that the blood is going to call to them, the blood in the water. So yes, I think we probably will see them. I spent a long time resisting this idea, but the more I think about it, the more I think actually, yeah, Euron's just everything he thinks he can get, he's going to try and summon, or get other people, get these magic users to summon. We have to ask, why was he collecting these magic users? He was collecting them for this battle. Why collect magic users? Maybe because he wants them to do magic. That seems to be the most logical most logical solution. Jamie McKenna saying, now I want a Song of Ice and Kraken t-shirt. New merch idea. Yeah, well, maybe that's what. So dislike saying, what if the story from HBO Game of Thrones isn't the real end, and the books will give us a longer story with Drogon, Daenerys, and a Shy? Okay, I mean, we're straying a little bit away from Euron there. I think that the story will end when we get the end of the story. I think that this is about Westeros, and this is about the beginning of book one. If it's framing what was going to be happening, which I think was right, we get the twin threats to Westeros. There's the Song of Ice and Fire. The prologue, we get Ice, the threat from Ice, the others. The very last thing we see in book one, threat from the dragons. They've arrived as well. Both of them still a long way off. The dragons have to grow. The others are still a long way away from the wall. But they are the twin threats to Westeros. And when they are vanquished, that is the end of the story. I think we will get the scouring of the Shire equivalent, as I said, after that, which is still in this homeland. So I think that's basically going to be mostly King's Landing. But I don't think after that we're going to have this, well, what happens next to all of these characters, where if Drogon picks up Dany and flies away, I think that actually that is the ending for them, because the dragons have gone away from Westeros. Andrew K saying, do you think Euron will do something to facilitate the others to come south, perhaps taking down the wall somehow? Certainly seems to fit in with his chaos and carnage plans. Yeah, I mean, this is something where we're still away from this, so the further away from what we know, the more speculative it is. But yes, this definitely fits in with the way that he would operate. And if he gets to understand about the others, maybe he's seen them in his visions already, then yes, perhaps he will want to facilitate them coming in and destroying stuff. That certainly seems to be fitting, as you say, with what he's wanting. The thought has crossed my mind that perhaps Euron flies a dragon up there and he's the one who burns down the wall to, or melts the wall or whatever, to allow the others through. That thought has crossed my mind, but at the moment it's still tinfoil because we haven't got any more information on that. The others do have to get through somehow. And the idea of a dragon doing it sort of makes sense because the barrier is not the wall itself. The barrier is a magical barrier, and something magical has to stop it in some way. So maybe Dragonfire is the way. So yeah, it's possible. It's possible. Christian Wickman saying, George has said we will not see a shy. That's very true. He said we might see it in flashbacks or memories, but we're not actually going to go to a shy. Okay, let's go to a question from Hobgoblin. Do you think that Euron's mass sacrifice will amount to anything substantial? Clearly he thinks it will allow him to become a god, but story-wise there doesn't seem much room left in the series for world-changing magical shenanigans, even if the effects of magic are heightened. So I think I've sort of answered a lot of this bit already. So I don't think he thinks this moment is making him a god. I think he thinks this is when he's starting to unleash chaos on the world. And out of all of that, he will become the god. He thinks that the example he uses when he's talking about going to raid all these towns and villages in Essos was that he was being the god to those people because they were calling out his name. And that seems to be what he considers the Godhead to be. He wants to destroy all these other religions and he wants people to be calling out his name. So that is not going to happen immediately, but that will happen if he unleashes enough chaos, if he destroys enough of the world. So I think there is definitely room for, as you say, more world-changing magical shenanigans. What I would say is that George R. R. Martin, there are two elements to George R. R. Martin's writing here. The first is that I think that we will see it get darker. He writes, a lot of his other writing is a lot darker, which is quite an odd thing to say when you think about A Song of Ice and Fire. Yes, it is quite dark, but he tends to the horror end of things as much as anything else. And that we've had a few elements of that so far, but I think that he did a bit of that in Fire and Blood. When we think about Arya and Balerion returning, that was very horror-ish. I think we will see a bit more of that. But also, the main thing I would say in terms of where the writing is going in terms of fantasy is that this started out as, if you forget the first and last chapters of book one, this is low fantasy. It's very gritty story. All of the characters that we're sort of introduced to as being sort of clever or wise, people like Tyrion, Maester Luwin, they scoff at the idea of actual magic and things like that. Dragons, the others, no, that's just nonsense. So this starts out as very low fantasy, but each book we've been getting higher and higher fantasy as we've been going through. We start getting dreams and visions, and then by the time we're at now, we've got somebody who is sort of seeing the past and the future through tree wizardry. We've got massive dragons flying about everywhere. We've got people coming back from the dead. We've got people doing all kinds of fire magic and goodness knows what. It's only the arc is carrying on towards higher and higher fantasy the further we go. And so I think there is scope for more magical shenanigans going forward. This is not about to revert back down to gritty low fantasy. This is going to end up as very much a high fantasy story. The Lady Eternal, thank you so much. That's a very generous super chat. Thank you so much. Saying, just a gift in gratitude for all the effort and passion you put into all you do. Your lovely personality and rich voice. Oh, you're going to make me embarrassed. Your lovely personality and rich voice are balms to the soul, especially during this long night. And the Westworld, Game of Thrones, and Tolkien fandoms are the better for your presence. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I do put a lot of my heart and soul in this to try and create not just good content, but positive content as well. Something which can uplift and can help elucidate and add to the experience of all of these different things that we read and watch. And if that comes across, then I am absolutely delighted. I love the kind of things that I cover, the Lord of the Rings, A Song of Ice and Fire, Westworld. There will be more things in the future, but I cover them because I love them. And if I stopped loving them, I would stop covering them. So you're never going to get from me, the why I hate this kind of video. That's if I hate something, I will say it on a live stream and I'll apologize and I'll move on to a different thing. And I'm not going to do long videos explaining why I hate stuff. I want this to be a positive channel. I want this to be a channel where we can share our enjoyment of stuff. So thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. It's the kind of comment that makes this all worthwhile. Okay, so let's go to a question from where have we got to? Daniel saying, hello. This is relevant to the Euron video, I swear. Back in Clash of Kings, Jaqen H'ghar was trying to get Arya to go with him to Braavos. And when she refused, he seemed to have changed his mind and went to Old Town instead. Maybe, depending on theories. Do you think this is coincidence that he might be in Old Town at the same time that Euron seems ready to sack it? No, it's not a coincidence. So for those who, just to refresh people's memory, he sort of says, come with me to Braavos, and in that voice, and she goes, nah, not really, not right now. And then he gives her the coin and says, if you ever change your mind, show this to anyone from Braavos, they'll take you there. Then he does this magic face-changing thing and goes away. Now, the implication is that he was going to take her off to Braavos. He'd finished whatever mission he was on, and the next step was to take her back to Braavos. But because she didn't want to, he then changed. And the face that he changed into is the same face that we see down in Old Town. Now, is it a coincidence? Did he change his mind? I don't think so. I think that what seems to have happened was that he was on a mission. I have my suspicions about what mission he was on. He was on a mission, and then he kind of was about to go, and then Arya kind of caught his eye, and he thought, okay, there's something here. She seems like a natural. Let's go with this. Let's see what happens. Then he tried to tempt her across into being a faceless man because he didn't have a mission to go to at the time. Then she said, no, I'm not going across. So he changed his face. I suspect he was going to change his face anyway because people will have seen who he is. That person there was a criminal. Maybe he would come across somebody who or had been in the black cells, should have been on their way up to the Night's Watch. If people saw that character, added to which all the stuff that they did at Harrenhal, if people saw that version of Jaqen, then he could have a problem. So he changed his face to have a new look that what didn't have any baggage in Westeros at the time. Then where did he go after that? Well, he may well have gone back to Braavos himself. We do not know. There is time, I think, for him to have gone back to Braavos, got a new mission, headed straight back out around to either Old Town or perhaps off to kill Balon Greyjoy. We don't know. Maybe it was a different faceless man who killed Balon Greyjoy. It's not sure. We don't. There are many faceless men, so it doesn't necessarily have to be the same person who did that. So I think what I'm trying to say is I don't think he changed his plans. He was willing to take Arya back. Arya didn't want to go back. He may well have just gone back to Braavos without her. And is it coincidence that he's there in Old Town at the same time as Euron is off the coast? I said no. It is on one level, in that I don't think that they're deliberately sort of timing it so that they're at the same time. But if, as appears to be the case, the thing that Jaqen is trying to do is get hold of that book, The Death of Dragons. Again, I've done theories on why he might be doing this if you want to check them. They're 2 or 3 years ago now, but they're called something like What Was Jaqen Doing in Old Town? If he is there for what he seems to be doing, which is collecting that book, then that is because of other things going on. He thinks, well, I need to go and get this book. We need this information now because I can see what's happening with the dragons. I can see potentially what's happening in the rest of the world. I need to go and get that. He's not doing it in order to coordinate some attack with Euron. There doesn't seem to be that link there. The only link is the fact that Euron seems to have hired the Faceless Men to do a job for him. And that's it. Let's go to a question. How am I doing? Oh, I've still got quite a few questions. Okay, I'm going to start rattling through these ones. Guys, it's getting quite late. A lot of questions. Okay, so about the coming, this is the second sister, about the coming battle at Old Town. Sam and Jack and Hagar will be there. What do you think their role will be in the attack? Do you think Sam might end up with a book on the life and death of dragons? I think so. I think Jaqen will end up with that book. I think Sam will end up heading north. Whether he takes any books with him, he may well take some up. But the main and most important thing, I think, is that he will take up the Horn of Winter. So, and maybe he will discover while he's there why that's important and what that does. Maybe that's what it is. But they will both, I think, escape before whatever apocalypse happens to Old Town. And if we're looking for historical analogues, then the Great Library of Alexandria is probably the closest we have to the library we've got in Old Town, and that burned down. So I think the hints are that that's what's going to be happening to Old Town, is it will burn down. Okay, got a few questions about Euron and Cersei. Diego Godoy saying, hi Robert, if we forget about the show, is there any evidence in the books that Cersei will team up with Euron? I feel like Euron is such a strong and independent character that he won't really need Cersei to accomplish his goals. Thanks. Well, he definitely, I don't think he needs Cersei. That's definitely a case, but he wanted Daenerys. I don't think he's going to get Daenerys. I think that in terms of what he might need from Cersei, I think that if he can get access to Qyburn and what Qyburn is doing, and Qyburn seems, yes, he's out for himself, but he is at the moment loyal to Cersei because Cersei is providing him with the resources that he needs, then that is a good enough reason for him to start trying to link himself up with her. Now, is there any evidence in the books that Cersei will team up with Euron? There is, as I say, in the visions, Aeron's visions, then there is a woman there. So that does seem to imply that Euron will be there at the end of this, he will be aligned with a woman. And Cersei will be, from her perspective, she will be without allies, I think. So I explained it in more detail last week, but Cersei is going to be, she, I think, is going to get kicked out of King's Landing by Aegon's invasion. She will go out. I think that she will have burnt her bridges by that point with the Tyrells. So she's going to probably head back to Casterly Rock. She's the Dornish are going to be aligning with Fagon. I think the Tyrells, they're not going to be aligning with the Lannisters. The Stormlands seem to be probably likely to be going behind Fagon. The Riverlands theoretically at the moment are under Lannister control, but I think that increasingly we'll find that the Super PAC, Lady Stoneheart, are going to be making them not really under control of the Lannisters. The Vale is under Littlefinger's control. The North is clearly not going to be tying up with the Lannisters. Cersei's got no allies left. Cersei is going to be needing some allies from somewhere if she is going to regain the throne, which she probably thinks that she should regain the throne. Who can she turn to? Well, the only and best solution seems to be Euron. So that is why I think that would work. I think there's something in it for both of them. And I think that there are hints that that is where it's going to go in the books. Nothing firm yet, but certainly hints. Victoria Gill did a super chat actually before we went live. Thank you so much, Victoria, for that, saying on the show, Cersei tried to pull off a baby daddy switcheroo with Euron. However, with Euron's habit of kin or king slaying, can you see this happening in the books? I think it's possible. I think it is possible. It was one of those things, and it's always dangerous trying to get into the mind of the showrunners, but it was one of those plots that they included and didn't really do anything with, which kind of, for me, that smacks of something that they've been told is going to happen, but it didn't quite fit in with their plans, and so they thought they'd include it, but they didn't really know what to do with it. So that implies to me that this does happen in some way. Maybe this is the thing that calls Jaime back. Maybe she is pregnant and he discovers it and he comes back. Maybe that's going to be the trigger. Whether it's kind of like a switcheroo, I don't know. Whether it's actually Jaime's and she's trying to pretend to Euron's it's his, or vice versa. I'm not 100% sure whether that's the case, but I certainly think that there probably will be a pregnancy in there somewhere. Maura Lee's asking whether I see Euron as the Valonqar, killing Cersei in a ritual sacrifice if he got her pregnant. Yeah, I mean, so I covered the Valonqar thing a little bit earlier in the live stream, but this idea that maybe he might kill her as part of some kind of sacrifice. I think that. Hang on, am I still working? It looks like I am. I'm not sure if I'm still live, guys. I hope I still am. So I'm going to keep on talking, and hopefully we'll get a few back in a moment. So apologies for that. I will carry on talking, and hopefully this will come back soon. I was talking about the Valonqar prophecy and whether this is the whether Euron might kill her in terms of a sacrifice. I think that's. I mean, it's possible. It's possible, but I think that again, Jaime's arc is so much more likely to end with him killing her rather than Euron killing her. Okay, guys, I'm not sure whether this is still working anymore. Could somebody in the chat tell me whether or not this is working? And if you're watching this back later and this doesn't make a lot of sense, then I apologize. I will get back to the stream in just a few seconds' time. I will carry on talking while this is going on. Second Sister asks, how and when will Euron and Daenerys meet? My take is that they might not, in all honesty. I can't see. So I think that they will be gone by the time Daenerys arrives. I think Cersei's going to be gone over to Casterly Rock. I think that Euron will stay on that side in the south and the west of Westeros for a while. So I think that is where they're going to end up. They will come back in after Daenerys and Fagon have dealt with each other. But then Daenerys is going to head up and deal with the others, and that's the point I think that Euron and Cersei will come back in. So if they meet, I think it will be right at this very end game time. Okay, guys, my thing at this end looks like this live stream has stopped, so I apologize for that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to end it now, edit it down. I have got couple of questions more to go from my patrons, so I will perhaps do an extra bonus live stream on this one. But for the sake of this video, what I will do is I will end this one now, and I will do as I usually do. Thank you so much, everyone, for fantastic questions today. If you are watching this back later, then appearing somewhere around here is going to be a link to some other live streams that I've been doing. Somewhere around here is a link to my Patreon page if you're interested in that. Okay, thanks everyone. This has been a really fun live stream. Take care, and I will see you again soon.